This is the 2017-2018 Science 8 recording on Yosemite. You will need two things in front of you to be successful in this summative. The first is an article of Yosemite. You either need a copy of it or you need to turn to this article in your book. This article in your science book starts on page 238. Please turn to it now. The second thing that you will need to have is this graphic organizer. It is called Unit Summative Project Earth's Dynamic Systems. Please put your name at the top of the page along with the hour that you have science. Directions. The goal of this summative is to show how geological processes have shaped your geologic feature or landform. You will get 2 class periods to complete this summative. On day 1, you will complete the graphic organizer below with information about your assigned geologic feature. You will do this by researching your geologic feature using reliable and referable websites. This is due Friday at the start of class. So the first thing that you are going to do on this worksheet is you are going to name your landform. You have been assigned Yosemite Valley. Please write that now on the blank. The next thing that you need to do on this graphic organizer is figure out the location of Yosemite. I'm going to read until I get to that information. If you were to stand in Yosemite Valley, a breathtaking view of tall cliffs, cascading waterfalls, sculpted rock, and pockets of green trees and meadows would greet you. In fact, the grandeur of the valley prompted the famous naturalist John Muir to describe it as the incomparable valley. Yosemite Valley is located in Yosemite National Park in California, nested within the Sierra Nevada mountain range. It is about 11 kilometers long and 1.5 kilometers wide. It is drained in part by the Merced River. So now we have information about the location, and it says that it's located in Yosemite National Park in California, and it's in the Sierra Nevada mountain range. So right here on your worksheet, you need to write in complete sentences in your own words where Yosemite is located. Also know that if you need to, you can refer back to your article to figure out how to spell these words. So the next part is the statement. I would like to skip that for a minute and go to the part that says formation, located right here with 3 key terms. What they're talking about there is what were the steps in the formation or the making of Yosemite Valley. So we need to read a little bit longer to figure out what that answer is. The valley boasts several notable features that attract visitors to the park. The famous El Capitan Cliff stands over 900 meters above the bottom of the valley. Opposite El Capitan is the Cathedral Rocks Tower, over 750 meters above the valley floor. Half Dome is known as the most recognizable feature in the Sierra Nevada range. It is a granite dome with an appearance matching its name, rounded on 3 sides with a sheer face on the 4th side. Its summit towers nearly 1,500 meters above the valley floor. The Yosemite Falls are one of North America's tallest waterfalls. 3 separate waterfalls flow 739 meters from the top of the upper fall to the base of the lower fall. Please turn the page. The interaction of several different geological processes shape Yosemite Valley, with glaciers playing an important role in its formation. The Ice Age glaciers helped sculpt the valley into what we see today. The glacier, which lasted from about 26,000 years ago to 18,000 years ago, is responsible for many of the features present in the park today. The glacier features in Yosemite Valley came about in two ways, by glacier erosion or glacier deposition. Glacier erosion tends to result in U-shaped valleys, a common feature throughout Yosemite National Park. Glaciers fill these valleys and cause erosion on the sides and bottoms of the valley. This widens and deepens the valley. Plunking by the glacier helps remove excess material from the valley. Plunking occurs when water from the glacier enters cracks in the rock and freezes, shattering the rock. The glacier then carries away the shattered pieces. The end result is a valley that resembles the shape of a U. The same processes that cause U-shaped valleys form Yosemite Valley, but it has a flat floor covered in sediment. This sediment hides the base of the U. Glacier erosion also carved out smaller U-shaped valleys in the cliffs of Yosemite Valley. In some cases, waterfalls formed when streams in these smaller valleys began cascading into the valley below. Please turn the page. Glacier features in Yosemite Valley are also a result of deposition. As glaciers move, they can carry rock and sediment from one place and deposit it to another, creating new landforms. Some of these landforms are known as moraines. There are several moraines located in Yosemite Valley. For example, the El Capitan moraine is a long and narrow moraine made of different rock types and sizes that spans the width of the valley. When it initially formed, it acted as a dam across Yosemite Valley. Erosion from the Merced River eventually created a gap in the dam. This is a recessional moraine, meaning it formed as the glacier was retreating. Glacier moraines actually play a role in the creation of Yosemite Falls, redirecting Yosemite Creek to a new path that carries it over the valley rim. As glaciers retreated from Yosemite Valley, they also left large boulders throughout the valley. These are called glacier erratics. Glaciers carried these large boulders from one place to another as they retreated, meaning the composition of each may have. As glaciers retreated from Yosemite Valley, they also left large boulders throughout the valley. These are called glacier erratics. Glaciers carried these large boulders from one place to another as they retreated, meaning the composition of each may be quite different than the rocks they rest upon. This may provide useful clues to scientists studying the movement of glaciers in the area. So let's fill out our worksheet again. So we need to think about what the first step of the making of the formation of the Yosemite Valley. And we know that Yosemite Valley was made from glaciers. So the first thing that it did was cause glacier erosion. That's the first step. So basically what happened was that the glacier went into Yosemite National Park, and with glacier erosion, it basically caused the U-shaped valleys. So the first step in the making or the formation of Yosemite Valley. So to figure out what the first step of the formation or the making of the Yosemite Valley, we need to refer back to the reading. So what you have at the very beginning is you have land with no glaciers on it. So what I need you to do is write right here, incomplete sentences in your own words, about how there was land here that didn't have any glaciers on it. So then the second step is that glaciers came. And when the glaciers came, they had glacier erosion. That's number 2. And so what happened is that the glaciers filled the valleys and caused erosion on the sides and bottom of the valley. This widened and deepened the valley. And so the glacier then carries away the pieces, and the end result is a valley that resembles the shape of a U. So what happens is that a glacier comes into the valley. So you have the land, and then you have a glacier that comes. Okay? And this glacier, basically, it melts just a little bit, and that glacier water gets into the rocks, and it freezes them, and it breaks them. And then the glacier picks up those rocks, and it moves it to a different place. And so then you have the glacier basically changing the valley so that it turns into like a U-shaped valley. So right here, I need you to write about that. That the glacier came in, and basically the glacier water got into rocks, the ice froze and broke the rocks apart. Then the glacier picked those rocks up and moved them, and as it moved, it carved a U-shape valley. So step 3 is still glacier deposition. So basically what the glaciers did was they moved and they carried rock and sediment from one place and deposited into piles in another. And this is called moraines. So what happened was this glacier basically picked up rocks and then it deposited it all in a pile. And that's called a moraine. And what happened was that moraine, or that pile of rocks, basically dammed up a river. And when it dammed up the river had to go a different way, and it ended up making a waterfall. So right here, on step number 3, you need to put that in complete sentences in your own words. The fact that this glacier picked up rocks along the way, then it deposited the rocks in a pile called a moraine, dammed up a river, and that river had to go a different way, and so it created waterfalls. So this is the 4th step. So in the 4th step, what happened was the glaciers retreated from Yosemite. They were also carrying large boulders through the valley called erratics. And what they did as the glaciers retreated, they dropped those rocks down. So here on step 4, you have a glacier, and then you have a rock on that glacier that it's picked up. But now the glacier is starting to melt. Okay? And as it melts, it drops that big rock right there. And that rock is nothing like the rocks that are around it. Because what happened was that glacier picked up that rock from pretty far away, moved it to Yosemite, and then as the glacier melts, that rock was dropped down. And that rock is called an erratic. That's how you spell it, erratic rock. So on number 4, right here, In complete sentences, in your own words, you need to tell us what the fourth step of how Yosemite Valley was created, which was that, that of glacier deposition. Which was glacier deposition, meaning that that glacier picked up a rock, moved it to Yosemite, the glacier melts, that rock falls down, and that rock, that erratic rock, is nothing like any of the rocks around Yosemite National Park. So the final step in the formation or the making of Yosemite Valley is not in the article. But now today, Yosemite doesn't look like it did right when the glaciers left, because we don't have any glaciers anymore. So after the glaciers left, Yosemite was pretty deep, or Yosemite had pretty deep valleys. But because of weather and erosion, what's happening is that valleys are not as deep as they once were. Because what's happening was that the little pieces of rock are weathering and they're breaking down and then they're getting moved other places. So right here, I need you to write that in complete sentences, what's happening to Yosemite right now. So let's go back up to the statement. And the first thing I need you to write right here is Yosemite Valley. So Yosemite Valley was formed as a result of glacier erosion, glacier deposition, and weather and erosion. So in this section, you need to define your three key terms. So your three key terms are going to be glacier deposition, glacier erosion, and weathering. And what you need to do is put these in a sentence and define them in your own words. The last section is a written description of appearance. So I'm going to talk to you and draw pictures of what it looked like throughout the ages. And you need to write in these boxes a written description of it, meaning you need to write a couple of sentences about it. So let's do the first one. In the beginning, it looked like. Here you remember that in the beginning, it was just land. There weren't any glaciers. So in a couple of sentences, you need to say that in the beginning there was land and there was no glaciers at all. Then it changed and looked like. So then the glaciers came, right? And it carved out these deep U-shaped valleys from glacier erosion. Glaciers also picked up rocks and deposited them or put them in a big pile and caused moraines. And glaciers also picked up rocks and then they melted, kind of like this. And also, glaciers picked up rocks and then they melted. And then these big rocks basically were deposited or put there, and those rocks don't look anything like the surrounding rocks at all. And so those are called erratic rocks. And that's how you spell erratic. So I'll give you a few minutes to write a couple of sentences about what it was like and how it changed in the past. Okay, today it looks like, so Yosemite has U-shaped valleys still, but they're just not quite as deep as they used to be. And the reason why that is because we don't have glaciers anymore that are eroding that area. So it's basically being weathered and eroded, and so the valleys are not as deep as they used to be. So I'll give you a few minutes to write a few sentences about that. So in the future it will look like, and again, the U-shaped valleys are not going to be quite as deep as they were before, even today, because of weather and erosion. So I'll give you a few seconds to write a little paragraph or few little sentences about how the valleys are not going to be so U-shaped or as deep as they were even today. That is the end of the recording.